Are we able to think about things for which we don't have words? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm Julian Northbrook, and this is Doing English. Does language define thinking? Or to put it another way, are the things that we are able to think about limited by the language that we have? One of the best films that I saw last year was the film Arrival, based on the short story Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang. If you haven't seen this film, or indeed read the story, and you don't want me to totally ruin the whole thing for you, you should probably stop watching this video now, because I'm gonna give away all the important points, because that's kind of necessary in order to talk about the thing that I want to talk about here in this video. And indeed, if you have any interest whatsoever in language or in psycholinguistics, you are definitely going to want to watch the film Arrival or read the story version. It's a short story, not a complete book, because it's based on some very important arguments in the field of psycholinguistics. In a nutshell, Arrival is about aliens which have landed on the planet Earth. The American government seeks out renowned linguist Dr. Louise Banks and brings her in to try and communicate with these aliens. Right away, Dr. Banks realizes that reproducing the aliens' spoken language, or indeed even comprehending it, is basically impossible. Human beings are just not built in the way that the aliens are built, and the bizarre clicking sounds that they make just mean nothing to us. Their writing system, on the other hand, now that is a different kettle of fish. Their writing system is very much reproducible by human beings, and so Dr. Banks throws herself into the study of the aliens' written language system, which she notices is quite different to their spoken language system. As she studies the way that the aliens write, however, she starts to notice something very curious. The way they write is not like how we write. When we write in words, starting at the beginning and lining words up until we form complete ideas. Not so for the aliens. The aliens write in circular characters that don't start at the beginning and finish at the end, but rather simply emerge as a complete whole idea. But this doesn't make any sense, because it's almost as if the aliens already know how the conversation is going to finish. But how can they know how a conversation finishes before they start the conversation? After a while, our protagonist, Dr. Banks, starts to realize that indeed the aliens actually do know how the conversation is going to finish before it started. You see, us human beings are only aware of one single temporal dimension, the here and the now, the present. For us, time is everything. The past exists only in the form of memories, the future only as imagination, expectation of what is to come. We are only aware of now. The aliens, however, operate in a very different way. Their perception of time is totally different. To them, past, present, and future are qualitatively the same. They are equally aware of all temporal dimensions. To the aliens, time is simply an illusion and doesn't really exist. Therefore, when in conversation, they do know how the conversation is going to finish, because they are able to see the future as well as they see the present. Once she grasps this notion, she quickly progresses with her study of the alien language. But as she studies, something very interesting happens. Anybody who's ever learned a second language, for example, English or any other language, has probably experienced a broadening of the horizons. Learning a second language gives us opportunities to see how other cultures think, and it changes the way that we think. For Dr. Banks, in this rather extreme situation, however, she experiences not only a broadening of the horizons, but a broadening of perception of time. Suddenly, she starts to get flashbacks, memories of the future. She remembers things that have not yet happened. She remembers her daughter dying as a young adult, even though her daughter has not yet been conceived, let alone born. This idea of language defining and changing the way that we think is based on a very important argument in psycholinguistics called linguistic determinism, also often called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, after Edward Sapir and Benjamin Whorf, the two people who really first formulated this idea back in the 1940s. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, in a nutshell, says that thinking is defined by the words and the language that we have. We are able to think about things that we are able to articulate. In a very extreme version of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, we would say that if you don't have the words or the language to describe something, you would be unable to actually think about that thing. The exact opposite end of the scale, of course, would be the idea that language and thinking are completely unrelated, and if we somehow were able to remove language from the equation, we would still be able to think, albeit we wouldn't think in words, but we would still think. Of course, we have no evidence for this because we just simply don't have anybody who has never learned a language, or at least not anybody who isn't severely brain damaged or psychologically impaired in some way. These, of course, are the extreme ends of the spectrum, and then we have a whole range of theories and kind of gradients of this in between. There's been a lot of very interesting research done on linguistic determinism, much of it on color terminology and languages and cultures which describe colors in very different ways. In extreme cases, some cultures only have two colors, hot and cold. Apparently, also I've heard, Russian splits the shades of blue into two separate colors. Anybody Russian watching this, please confirm in the comments. Japanese too has a slightly different way of thinking about green and blue compared to English. We say that the leaves on the trees are blue because blue also means young and fresh. The word aoi has a double meaning. We therefore also say that the traffic lights are blue, whereas clearly to look at, they're green. There's also been a lot of very interesting research done with number and counting systems. For example, the Amazonian tribe, the Pidahan. Watch this video for more detail on them and why they are linguistically so very interesting. The Pidahan only have one and many in their counting system, and they proved extremely resistant to learning even the most basic of mathematics, which was put forward as evidence for linguistic determinism. Although I have to point out that there is very strong counter evidence for this as well, because the Australian tribe, the Warlpiri, also only have one, two, and many in their language, but they were able to learn mathematics without too much difficulty. So what's my take on all of this? Well, I would very much disagree with this extreme version of linguistic determinism. The idea that we are simply unable to think the things that we don't have words for, to me, intuitively at least, doesn't really make much sense. But I would also hesitate to agree with the exact opposite end of the spectrum. The idea that language and thinking are completely separate also, to me, doesn't really make much sense, because as someone who has learned a second language, I have experienced this rather extreme broadening of the horizons and change in the way that I think about things based on having learned, again, a second language to quite a high level. There are many things which are said and expressed in Japanese that simply aren't expressed in English. This all has changed the way that I see the world and think about things, not to mention the very deep insights mastering Japanese has given me into the Japanese culture and the very different way that Japanese people behave and think and perceive the world. This has all given me the benefit of two different contrasting ways, often contrasting ways of looking at things. And again, this has changed me as a person to quite an extreme extent, I think. And indeed, I believe that everybody should learn a second language or languages, if only for this richness of insight that it brings and the way that it allows you to perceive the world in a much deeper kind of way. For you, if that means English, fantastic. If you want to know more about this complex interplay of language, thinking, and culture, have a read of my book, Master English Fast, where I talk about this stuff quite a lot. I also am going to have a complete book about culture and the way that it defines language use as a speaker of English as a second language coming soon. It's in the writing stage at the moment. It's going to be called Say What You Mean, and hopefully I'll have it done sometime in the summer or something like that. But yeah, it's coming soon. I think that is about all I've got to say on this topic for the moment, although I am sure there will be more videos on this in the future. But before I go, let me hand the baton over to you. What are your thoughts on this idea? Do you agree with the concept of linguistic determinism, the idea that language defines thinking? Or do you think the idea is just a whole big load of codswallop? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I, for one, will be very interested to read them, and I'm sure other people will be too. This then is Julian Northbrook signing off from another daily Julian Northbrook language learning English linguistics videos, whatever you want to call them, video. I really need to come up with a good name for these videos. See you same time, same place tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye. Talking about learning languages, do you want to know what my completely useless list of top 4 languages to learn is? Check this video right here for that. And here's another question. Is it possible to forget your first language? Check this video to find out.